Hi everybody, Rita here. I thought that today was the day to tell you about a horrible experience I went through as a tenant. And I wanted to talk about tenant rights today because, we always talk about it from tenants are so bad, how to evict them. But sometimes, no matter, you can be the most perfect tenant, yet the landlords take advantage of you. So I went through that experience. I recently moved from Joburg to Cape Town, and I rented here for quite some time. And then when I moved out, that's when the issues came up, right? Because then all of a sudden, I wasn't treated like a customer or a client anymore. I was all of a sudden enemy number one for these rental agents and the landlord. And the way that I was treated was just so horrible that I thought it's time that we do a video from the other side of things. As a landlord, I always try and be in a good position and do the right thing by my tenants. But, why don't we ever feel that we are being, I'm not getting that back as a tenant. So, yeah, and that's why I thought through my journey, Elize has been my coach, so to speak, my legal coach on that. And I thought I would invite her today. She is the owner, founder, I don't know, she can give you the right terminology for Expello. So she always works with tenants and with landlords and trying to bring, I think, an amicable solution to both parties. And get the best solution for both parties involved. So she's going to be my resident expert, and she can tell me where I went wrong. And I know I got very, very unreasonable at times, and I'm like, these people, can I just not talk to them anymore? I got so stressed out, and she was always there to calm it down. So Elize, welcome. Give us a little bit of background. What's all the things, how have you been involved with landlords and tenants in the past?
Rita, firstly, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's always so much fun to attend these things with M5. That's definitely one of the things. M5 always aims to be the good landlords. They're really not aiming for the slum landlords. So as a qualified attorney, as a qualified attorney, I acted for many landlords in evictions. So during that time period, I've dealt with only on behalf of the landlords and the agents. Since 2019, we've only been focusing on Expello, and Expello is an eviction management service. Now, everybody's saying to me, you are talking about tenant rights while you're having a lease on here that's evicting tenants. And one of the things is, even before we can get to an eviction, there's always a dispute, and that dispute has to be resolved. And I have to say, I've seen many occasions, landlords being so unreasonable, and then they want to cancel and they want to take, very aggressive steps, but they're in the wrong. I sometimes think people don't realize what is the onus on a landlord when they lease out the property. So firstly, the property has to be in a good condition. And secondly, wear and tear happens. People have this in their head that you can allow a tenant to stay in the property and they have to look after the property, fully. And then when they move out, everything has to be very nice. And if it's not, you could just hold the tenant liable. But that's not how it works. That's why people are renting a property, that's not their property. The owner has to look after it. I'm not talking about globes. I'm meaning like painting out of place. Some landlords, they take the opportunity. There's a chip on the oven or on the stove. Now they have to replace the whole thing of 15,000 Rand. It's not really necessary. So I've really seen the extremes in many instances.
Yeah, and I think, in my life, I must say that I haven't rented a lot. I think I rented 3 times. The first time I was very young. We were just starting out, moved into a place with a friend, and we rented there for about a year. And then I was going to get married, and we were going to move in together with the then boyfriend, husband to be. And, at that point, I was nailed on my deposit right from the beginning, because we moved out a little bit earlier, and they then said to us, okay, but you can't get your deposit back because you're giving up. So I can understand that. No, you're right, because I had a fixed term lease. I was supposed to notify them, but part of the lease said that I am allowed to find a suitable replacement as a tenant. I then managed to find someone that needed a place, that wanted to move in, but that person was just blankly rejected. No reasons, just no, not good enough. It can't be done. Sorry, cheers for your deposit. I mean, how do I know then that? How is that thing even a thing? Why if landlords are just going to reject these people, why is that even in the leases thing?
Yeah, so I have to say, one of the things, and before we get to deposits, is it sometimes feels to me that tenants are educated on their rights, but they're not educated on all their rights. I think that is one of the dangerous things,
Yeah.
I think that one of the rights they know is I can cancel at any time. But that is how it's implemented, and the consequences are usually a very big thing. For example, if with regards to your deposit, if the tenant, you want to vacate because of these damages to the property and the landlord is just not fixing it, most tenants will go and they'll give notice because they can in terms of the CPA, and they move out, but then they are liable for a cancellation penalty. Where if they place the landlord on terms and say, you have to fix X, Y, and Z within 20 business days, if you don't, we are going to proceed to cancel the lease agreement, then they can't be held liable for any damages. People don't know this.
That's so brilliant.
Yeah,
That's
so
brilliant.
that is the part, and you guys have to remember that what makes it even, an agent can't advise a tenant because the agent acts for the landlord. So the agent can't tell the tenant, listen, I know the landlord is not fixing the stuff, or there's something that the landlord is doing, you can place him on terms instead of just giving notice. People hold on to that deposit as many times, because in reality, and I'm not pointing fingers at any agents or any owners, but many times owners use the deposit. They don't keep it in an interest-bearing account. Okay, so they don't really have the money to give back. Many times what happens is the agents take the deposit as their placement commission, and they're supposed to do, so they don't want to give the money back because it means somebody's going to be out of pocket. So that makes it very difficult. Also, it is a right of the landlord to say whether they're going to accept a applicant, so the replacement tenant that you were referring to. But if they didn't accept him without any valid grounds, remember the landlord has an obligation to minimize its damages. So that now sort of come down to the early cancellation damages, where they usually say it's your deposit that you're going to forfeit. But if you haven't suffered any damages, or you could have reasonably prevented from incurring any damages. So in this instance, the person had a good credit score, everything checked out perfectly. There was no reason to decline him, and they decline him. They can't then hold on to their deposit because they elected to suffer those damages.
Yeah.
So that is the one thing.
Yeah, and I think for me that the main thing when it comes to tenants is that, when I would say, well, if I just think about the process from a personal point of view, you stay in a place, then certain things break, and then I'm always like panicking. It's like, oh crap, am I going to be charged for this? Am I not? So that's the one thing that you panic about as a tenant. The second thing is, it's always an issue about how can I cancel my lease? How can I move out without penalties, or when will I get a penalty? And I think the third thing is about, like you said, the landlord is not fixing things that you need him to fix. And the last thing is obviously about your deposit. Will I get my deposit back or not? How can I make sure that I get my deposit back? So I think almost if we then look at, but how can tenants then, what are the things, if we look at number one, what are the things that they should be fixing, and what is it that owners should be fixing in a property? Because I know while I was renting, my daughter would be like hanging on the kitchen cupboard door, and I'll be like, get off it, otherwise they're going to want to replace the whole kitchen. So something like that. Or if there's a leak, my husband used to, I mean, he's a handyman husband, so he likes to, if there's a tap that's leaking, he'll just go and fix it. But what is it that we should actually, sometimes you shouldn't as a tenant do anything, because you can actually get into trouble. So what are the things that tenants should or shouldn't do while they're renting to avoid this whole deposit and fights with landlords and things?
Okay, so, the small things, for example, a light globe. I mean, that's things that you go replace because it's usable. The biggest things is, I usually say, rather give the information. If the taps are leaking, tell them the taps are leaking. Can you fix it? Or should they want to send somebody out? The reason why you have to give them the options is, for example, you've got a handyman. Hopefully my husband doesn't see this. He's not as handy. So maybe if he fixed the tap, it might cause more damages. So one has to be careful as to who does the fixing of stuff, if one can put it that way. And you don't want to have the situation to make things worse. So if it's small and you say, listen, my husband has fixed many taps, we did a lot of renovations, can we fix the tap? It's going to cost X amount of money. If they go and say, no, I would rather send out a plumber, because remember, houses and everything gets old. Even carpets is a very good example. If you are the correct amount of money in people in a unit, and walking up and down, that carpet is going to go through. When you move out, they can't hold you liable for the carpet. If you are ever suddenly take heavy traffic on a carpet because you're more people, then it's excessive use. So that makes it very, very difficult. The other thing is, usually if I say a blocked drain, if it's something that you caused, if you are dumb and you put oil or fat down the drain and it blocks everything up, you can most now know that was your fault. If it is because of a tree outside the property, it's nothing that they can prove that you've done to cause it, then the owner has to fix it. I think that is always the thing. So usually my answer is, if somebody says, whose fault it is, I said, who's the expert and what it caused it? So for example, the cupboard door, what caused it to break? It's clearly that there has been extra pressure, somebody's been hanging on it. So, okay, it will be the tenant. I think that is a very good guideline as to always what caused it. If it is because the doors are just opening, it's wear and tear, then it's the owner that has to fix it.
But now I know tenants like to always say, okay, but I asked you to fix this thing and you're not fixing it, so I will be fixing it and I'll be taking it off the rent. Can they do that? And or are there better ways to do that sort of thing? Because sometimes when I get the same complaint a million times, I stop reacting quickly to tenants, even from my personal landlord point of view. But is that really the right thing to do?
So the first thing is, you have to report it. Okay. The second thing is it really impacting your stay in the property? So, for example, if it's something, a geyser that's leaking or a tap that is leaking is serious, because it's also causing an increase in water usage that can affect your bill. But if you have like 7 bedrooms, and on the 7 bedroom that you don't use, there's a crack in the wall, you're going to report it, but it's not going to have any impact on you if they fix it or not. So it all comes down, I mean, things that impacts on security, I mean, that plays a role. You have to fix the door. There's a chip in the tile. Okay, it might not look pretty, but it's not going to make you use the floor any less. So I think that is also things that people have to take into consideration when they want things fixed.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So then, as a tenant, then you can't really, you shouldn't, and you can't really withhold rent for any reason. You must report it. And then if it is a security issue, if it is your tap dripping and the landlord isn't fixing it, then it comes to that terms thing that you have to do.
So that is the definitely, you can't even just withhold. You have to say to the landlord, you need them to fix this. If you don't fix this, you're going to cancel, or you're going to fix it yourself and deduct it from the rent. So you can prompt a response. But what is very funny is many people are saying, oh, the place is so terrible, I can't stay here. And you tell them to move and they don't want to move. So just be careful. If you are saying a property is so badly damaged, you can't stay in it, move.
Then rather move, yeah.
Yeah, rather move. I mean, then you're not going to lose anything.
No. All right. Okay, cool. And then I think also from, you know, so my one rental experience then, as, you know, I moved out and I suppose that was sort of the only thing, because I moved out a month early, they kind of took that for rent, because it's not like I paid the rent for that month. And then, oh no, I did actually, I think we were very stupid then. Anyway, so I lost the deposit plus the last month's rent. But thinking about it now, actually, I could have gone back and said to them, okay, well, I did pay that last month's rent. Where's my deposit? But I kind of just, you know, I was young and stupid, like I said, and we just left it there. The second instance that I had was, we moved into a new build house, a duplex thingy, and we had a rental agreement for 6 months with an option that we could purchase the property. We decided you know, this is a rental thing, but it's not something, it didn't have a garden, blah, blah, blah. So we decided we don't want to buy. But then in month 5, the owner comes to us and they say, listen, we found a person that wants to buy this property now. Can you guys move out? Luckily, by that time, we found a place and we could convince the builder, because we're also new build here. I've always just in my life moved into new builds, which is another story for another video. But you know, then we moved there. We were able to fast track that thing, and we were able to move in early. But in that instance, before we were even moved out, the builder came in and the agent and everybody came in, and they are now repainting the whole place, because they promised the person that's buying it that it's going to be a new house. Okay, so obviously this place had to look like new. So they were painting and everything, and I'm not getting any of my deposit back. Luckily, by that time, I learned a little bit, and if you know me, you'll know that I hate conflict. But for the first time in my life, I was like yelling at someone, telling him how this is fair wear and tear. You didn't give me a chance to clean, because literally we didn't even have a chance to start cleaning the cupboards and just from normal use and wash the carpet. None of that. They just put in a professional team. And in the end, I think the agent was quite good, because they kind of negotiated that. And the agent then eventually, I paid a little bit, but not that much. So it was more a amicable kind of negotiated solution. But sometimes the agents just don't care. So what is the agent's role in all of this? And yes, they act for the owner, the landlord, but you know, surely they should also look at the tenants. And I always tell my agents that, you know, the good tenants that we have, you have to do everything you can to make their lives, their properties great, and almost they must be your client as well, so that I can keep that client as a landlord. So what really is the responsibility of the agent in all of this, and fighting for you as a client, or will they just never fight for a tenant? It's always just the landlord.
No, so before I even jump into the agent, just to say one thing back is inspections are super important. Ingoing inspections, and these days I think that's one definitely good thing from COVID is you get all of these apps that you can do live. I mean, your phone, take the video of the whole place, that you always have a starting point and an end point, because you know how many times at the end it says, oh, you damaged the cupboards. No, when I moved in, the cupboard did look that way, but there's no recording of it. I mean, think about it. If you rent a car, you walk around it and you make scratches, but that is not as good as a photo or a video. So always take that comparison that one can see how it looked like. And then also before you move out, sort of start with the outgoing inspection things that you can have an opportunity to clean and fix stuff before they send in, because unfortunately they've got the contractors, they use them. They're not going to go and look for the cheapest person to use. That's the thing. Now with an agent has an obligation to act fair. So they do speak to their landlords and they do tell them that, listen, you are being fair or not, or advise them. But unfortunately, in that instance, an agent is like a lawyer. We can say, we can advise, but we cannot force. I always laughed and said, when my clients are wrong, I go, I am instructed X, Y, and Z. Ne? That means I don't agree, but that is not what I have to say. Ne? So unfortunately, agents
are. I know now.
Now you know.
I'm going to listen going forward.
if you ever call it, and that's where we used to laugh and go, if somebody says, I am instructed, then it says, I'm too embarrassed to let this go out of my mouth, but I have to say this. Same thing with agents. They will tell the landlord, listen, this is not the situation. And it's not worthwhile fighting, going through the process. So they do advise and they try to, because remember, the tenant, they're going to use that tenant for another property as well. So they do want to keep the relations as much as possible. But if they really have to pick a side, it's going to be the side of the landlord, because the landlord pays them their fee. So that is one of the things.
Yeah, I suppose. And if they know that you're not going to rent again, you're busy buying another property now, they're not even going to try and be nice to you, because you're not a future client or a future income for them, no matter how good a tenant you've been in that time.
And remember, most agents, they're in the business not because of they love it, it's because of the money. So your landlord pays you. And
really? Okay, if there's any real estate agents listening to this, if you love having tenants, okay, if you love being a rental agent, please put it and prove Elize wrong, okay?
I hope I'm wrong.
Loves it.
I hope I'm not going to get hate mail, but no, I mean, I work with a lot of agents, and what I see is, it's a very thin line. Sometimes I really want to help the tenants, and they can't, because the owners, they've got a mandate to act on behalf of the owner. That's why it usually says go to the tribunal. That many people will say the tribunal is much more in favor of the tenant than the landlord. If one take that approach.
Somebody has to be, otherwise you're a bit stuffed. But now, speaking about the tribunal, Elize, so let me explain this last little horrible incident that I'm finally getting to after a long story. I was renting for 3 years. We were really good tenants. I never paid late. During COVID last year, I took about a 2-month 50% reduction that I promptly caught up right after that again. And I even, I didn't have any, I always paid on time and all that. So no issues there. We hardly ever had any maintenance things because my husband would do it. So literally this landlord didn't have to pay much. Obviously, there were some things that, because it didn't affect my use of the property, I said to the agent, this stuff is happening, but it's fine. You don't need to fix it right now. You can fix it whenever after COVID or whatever, you can fix it then. Like, for instance, when it rained, there was at the door a little drip that came in. I took photos of it, and the pillar there got a little bit of damp. But it was sort of on the outs, not on like a little patio area. So it wasn't in the house, and it wasn't affecting me really in a way. So they could then come and fix it whenever. But at no point was I ever unreasonable about things that needed to be done or anything like that. So when the time came and we were moving out, we moved out. So maybe I should tell you about this as well, where I did take advantage of my tenant rights. Okay. So here's the story, the full story. I'll do full disclosure. So we were supposed to move out in end of January. We got notice that, you know, the owner doesn't want to extend the lease. He wanted to do some stuff there, what. So I was supposed to move out. So I said, okay, fine, no problem. But by that time, I already decided I'm not going to be renting again. I want to buy. So we looked for a place and I found one, the house I moved into now that I absolutely love. But, you know, but now obviously you're buying a property, so it takes long, and the bond took forever and the clearances and everything took forever. So it came end of Jan. I said to the landlord, please, can I have an extension of 1 month because this property hasn't registered yet. Begrudgingly, they agreed. Okay. Come end of February, I'm like, guys, I can't move out because I had nowhere to go. Okay. My family is all in Joburg. I can't afford to move twice to put all my stuff into storage, go live with my family in an Airbnb for a month or 2 or 3. I don't have the money for that. So I have nowhere to go. So I'm not moving. Okay. There was drama. There was like very like quiet like silence at the end of the phone when I said that. I'm like, you know, yeah, but you know, the seller's coming all the way. Then they lie. So they also had a very I don't want to say the propensity, I hope that's the right English word, for lying to me, because then they said, but the owner, you know, he wants to do some renovation work, and he's coming all the way. He booked his flight. He's flying down from Dubai. And I'm like, it's in the middle of wave 2. Dubai has blocked all flights from Dubai to South Africa. There's no way he's flying. And even if he is flying, he won't be allowed to go back to Dubai. So don't lie to me, number one. So after that, all those little lies that they told me, eventually they agreed. They did another 3-month extension, and I managed to actually get early occupation on my house. Even though the property wouldn't have registered, I got early occupation, so everything sorted fine. I kept on paying my rent, being a good tenant like I thought I was, and it all went through fine. So Elize, in a situation like that, can the landlord, what as a tenant, so obviously this video is from a tenant's point of view. So there I took advantage of my right about, well, the only way you're going to get me out is evicting me. And by that time, hopefully I would have moved already before we got to that point. What was sort of the rights at play here?
So that's a difficult one. I think the right is the owner could have proceeded with an eviction because the lease agreement has come to an end. But then exactly what one has to consider is the process, you know, and whether it's fair. One, we have to remember that during this time period, the courts are going to look at what is the damages being suffered. Because remember, an eviction is a very drastic thing, and it's a human rights thing that's been implicated. You are affecting the rights of your children, your rights of you to be on the street. And in the interim, the owner is not suffering any damages because you guys are paying, you're good tenants. So, you know, there's always various factors that plays a role in circumstances. I have to say, I think what happens is by the time when you moved out, they are much more tense. These agents are much more tense, and that's why they take they really a close look to any defaults, you know, to nail you as much as possible. So I do think that is sort of caused, they're not as nice as they would have been maybe at the end. So because of the frustration. But yeah, it's a, you know, I always say there's rights out there and there's avenues available. How it works and what is going to be the outcome, one will have to determine if it's worthwhile. About, for example, fighting about a deposit. I mean, to lose a deposit of 3,000 Rand, yes, it's going to hurt, for example, but you're going to pay an attorney 5,000 Rand to fight about the 3,000 Rand. It doesn't make sense. Even 10,000 Rand, being an attorney myself, I mean, the amount must really be worthwhile to litigate, because over and above that, you have to pay for an attorney to litigate. You know, it's emotionally taxing. It's not fun to litigate. Nobody stands up and go, yay. And especially if it's an emotional thing. You know, rental is an emotional thing. I see how landlords, sometimes my meetings end off go drink wine or drink tea, you know, that's a type of thing. It's a very emotional situation.
Yeah, and I think obviously that little thing, but it wasn't, yeah. I mean, I didn't have a choice. So it wasn't a stunt that I pulled because I had another choice. It was really because I didn't have another choice that I had to go that route. But I must say it did backfire because exactly like you say, came end of the lease period. Thinking back now, I should never have paid that last month's rent because I didn't see any of my deposit again. And I mean, they literally took, I cleaned that house. It was perfect. I washed the walls top to bottom. Nothing was wrong, but still they managed to find things that I'm like, but guys, this is wear and tear, and it's just normal fair wear and tear. There's nothing overly or like you say, excessive use or anything on these things. And they were like, well, sorry, we assess the situation and it's the tenant's responsibility to do. So I'm now at a point where I'm like, okay, well, what do I do? Because the amount is not 3,000 for me, because they took much more than 1 month's rent to begin with. So I've got about 22,000 rands to go and fight for. Now, my question is, if the only route left for me really is number one, well, two routes, I suppose. The one route which is sort of free is the tribunal, but am I even, is it even going to go anywhere? Okay, and how much evidence do I need to take versus how much evidence do they need to take? Number one. Number two, I can go to a proper attorney and get a proper legal team in to do this thing for me, not via the tribunal, not free, but something paid for. But how much is that going to cost me now? So where do I stand now? Or do I just take, you know, a couple of bucks, go buy 3 bottles of wine and drink until I forget? I don't know. So I suppose, what is your experience with tribunal versus just a different attorney and the costs and things involved in that?
So I would definitely say, especially for tenants, to go the tribunal route. I have to say, I'm very, in a sense, impressed that since COVID, you know, you do it via Zoom, you can submit your papers on there, and because they do pressure the people to make payments. And remember, you only have to prove that you have paid the deposit. The owner now and the agent has to come and prove that the deductions they made was fair, so that they can hold you liable. So, for example, they have to prove it's not normal wear and tear. So the onus are on them to prove those type of things. That's the first thing. Sometimes, depending on tribunal, because I have to also say you have tribunals and you have got tribunals out there, to go the legal route, it is not a quick solution. So don't think that you are going to get your money quickly. Remember, the tribunal, within 30 days, you must probably going to get a date for mediation, and then it gets postponed for arbitration if you can't settle. Where with the summons, that gets served, you have to wait 2 weeks, and then it goes into default judgment maybe, and you're looking at 6 to 8 months to resolve that matter. And if it goes on trial, it's going to cost you about 30,000 rand. So I would definitely say tribunal, try that first as a starting point, because at least they will always make sure that both parties walk out with something. So worst case scenario for a tenant is most probably you'll get half of your deposit back, because the presiding officer, and if there's presiding officers looking at this is just my opinion, is they do want to solve it. Okay, so they want to solve it at mediation. They don't want to go to arbitration. So they will really try all to settle a matter.
Okay, and now where does the EEAB fit into this? Because we always hear don't rent, and I think for me as well is that I don't want to rent directly from an owner, because I don't know what's happening with my deposit. Then you have even less of a chance to ever see your deposit again. So where does the EEAB then fit into this? Is this something you can report to them, or are they just kind of a body that's there but not really there? I don't know what their role is in a case like this.
So the EEAB has gone through quite a couple of
Oh,
things.
and
the
by the
main-
way, that's the what Estate Agency Affairs Board, and all proper real estate agents must be registered with them, just because we're using acronyms that not everybody might understand.
Yeah. So the main purpose of them is especially they should make sure that people get audited every year, that the money that they receive, the deposits, that it goes into a account. So that is very important, and that's their main role. And of course, then they're gonna go and have a look at complaints of somebody not acting I want to say fit and proper, that is their goal. So if you are feeling that, listen, this agent didn't act in terms of the, I want to say protocols or the standard of a proper estate agent, remember, then you can report them and they're going to look at their conduct. Just because you don't agree on the valuation of an item, that's not the EEAB thing. That is a civil fighting. If they stole money or misrepresentations, I mean, my sister-in-law had this terrible thing of she wanted to rent a property. She paid, the agent said, no, pay your deposit quickly, pay your first month. And meantime, that agency actually took an OTP like 2 hours beforehand. And after all the money was paid, they went, oops, sorry, the property is no longer available. And then there was a big fight to get our money back. I mean, that type of thing is so unethical that has to be reported. So I think the guidance to go to the EEAB is really to whether something is ethical or not.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, so I'll decide still, but I need to decide whether I'm going to do the whole tribunal thing. And I think maybe just for the experience and to make a video about it, I'll do it. I'm going to go that route and I will record it all for you, for everybody, and you can see what it is to go through this process. Because I think we've all heard a lot of horror stories about how difficult it is. And my sister tried it once and it never worked. And, so, but, we've been to it from a landlord point of view. So maybe soon you'll see a video from me on how the rental tribunal process works and if it works. But Elize, thank you so much for chatting about this. And I think then if there's any tenants that need advice, is that something you do or not really?
I think the easy way is to go and go online to get some details. I'm not the best first port of call to start if the tenant has complaints. That I think the tribunal has got a free advice line. Give them a call and they will be able to assist with guidance.
Okay, so Elize is saying she's going to charge you too much. So please call the rental tribunal helpline first and get help, get advice. And and good luck, guys. Good luck, because you're going to need it. We'll chat again. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.